Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1 minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning, folks. Welcome to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house, and a little volume level there, so we'll have to adjust. How about that, Fabio? Good morning, folks. If I sound a little louder than I should, it's because we're dealing with some no issues here other than the fact that we had a recording or two this week, and anytime you're in the studio, one of the knobs gets pushed around. I want to ask you a question before we get started this morning so you can ponder it and give us a call at 888 Car Clinic. Hannah will take your call and put you in a queue, and I'll put you on the air. What about oil changes? How often should you change your oil? And also, should you turn your accessories off before you start your engine? Think about that. A lot of people do. A lot of people think that's the way you should do that, but you'd be surprised. 888 Car Clinic, give us a call and I'll answer your car questions. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you this morning by O'Reilly Auto Parts. If you're doing a repair that needs a special tool, O'Reilly Auto Parts makes it easy with their loaner tool program. How cool is that? Over 80,000 specialized loaner tools available, and they're sure to have a tool in stock to help you get the job done. Purchase the needed part and put down a deposit on the loaner tool, return the tool in original condition, and receive a full refund. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Your call to 888 Car Clinic when I come back. If your vehicle's a little sluggish, try Berryman's B12 Chem Tool. Using HEST or high energy solvent technology, Berryman's B12 Chem Tool dissolves gum, varnish, and carbon deposits in the fuel system, which help restore lost power and peak performance. But don't take our word for it. Richard M's 99 Acura had 200,000 miles and was idling roughly. He put a bottle of Berryman B12 Chem Tool and the idle smoothed out and the car ran noticeably better. Learn more about Berryman B12 Chem Tool and other great products at berrymanproducts.com. Motorrad, a longtime OE supplier, is the leader in automotive thermostats and fuel and oil coolant caps. Motorrad's state-of-the-art quality control and functional testing systems ensure high-quality, long-lasting products. Motorrad delivers world-class product development, providing all the parts and accessories needed to do the job right the first time, every time. Motorrad offers the best coverage of thermostats and closure caps in the world for virtually any vehicle and engine on or off the road. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. A customer dropped off a 99 Ford Ranger for a routine oil change service, and she mentioned that the truck was misfiring on occasion. The road test confirmed a misfire under load even though there was no check engine light or any other codes to be found. While performing the oil service, we found a coolant level low, sending up an immediate red flag. A quick check of the ignition system revealed the number 5 cylinder was the missing culprit. We pulled out all 6 plugs and did a quick compression test. All cylinders were pretty close at 200,000 miles. We then inspected the plugs closely, and the one from number 5 had traces of coolant on it. Antifreeze will leave a greenish yellow tint on the electrodes. This engine had a small head gasket leak or a cracked cylinder head. Tear down and inspection was more than the truck was worth. So we suggested K-Seal. We poured in the product, drove the truck, topped off the coolant, and installed a fresh set of spark plugs. It's been over a month, and the car's doing great. For more information, go to kseal.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with today's broadcast. 888-227-2546 is the number for you to call. I see that Marty is on the phone from Texas, so we're going to take Marty and go directly to Texas. Marty, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
How you doing, sir?
Terrific.
Oh, good. My question's on a 2014 Ford F-150 pickup. The rear axle is leaking fluid from the pumpkin on the axle, and I talked to the dealership yesterday, and they said they could either do a transmission flush and fill or replace the filter, but not both.
Now, wait a minute. You said the differential is leaking,
Right.
and then you said they can either do a transmission flush and fill. That's two different.
Okay. Well, I probably should have separated them then.
I mean, what is your question?
Questions on the transmission flush and fill or replace the filter.
Oh, what?
They will do one or the other, but not both.
Well, the reason I won't do both is because you end up wasting fluid. So there are times when, Marty, you do both, but that's rare, and that's when the fluid is so filthy and so dirty that the filter needs to be changed, but you can't put the filter in with the old fluid, so you have to use the machine to remove all of the old dirty fluid. And then once you're finished with that service, then you have to go back in, not back in, but you have to drop the pan and install the new filter and then top off the fluid. So you'll lose 4 or 5 quarts. We've only done that, I can think of, I don't know, half a dozen times in the last 20 years. So that's only when the fluid on the transmission is so bad that there has to be some damage to or particles in the filter. So the short answer to your question is you definitely want the machine that extracts all the old fluid and puts the new fluid in, and do not change the filter. You've got a 14 vehicle. How many miles on it? 75?
134,750.
Wow. Well, you do drive a lot. Well, what condition is the fluid? Have you looked at it?
No, sir. There's not a dipstick for it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, here's what, and I was going to give you a trick that Ford Motor Company suggested that really does work. And you can do this. You would have to you'd have to create a leak, or when I say create a leak, you'd have to take where the cooling line is. You'd have to loosen that fitting and let a few drops of fluid come out, and you might do that just so that you can know how badly oxidized and what debris is in that fluid. But the short answer is use the machine, don't replace the filter, and flush the transmission. However, the machine that they use has a clear bar that shows the old coming out and the new going in. So it might be interesting for you to watch that process. I think it's fascinating, and I enjoy that, and I encourage folks to to do that. But a lot of people said, I don't want to go back in the shop. Well, we don't want people coming in the shop as long as we're, invite them in. We don't want them wandering through the shop. But
Right.
and then now back to your pinion seal. Is that where it's leaking, or is that an axle seal?
It's the rear seal on the differential.
Okay, that's the pinion seal. That is easily, I'll say easily replaced. There's a stepped process to replace a pinion seal. It is a very sophisticated procedure that requires finesse and experience. And let me tell you why. With some differentials, there's a pinion bearing that locates the pinion, and then there are carrier bearings that locate the ring gear. And the ring gear and pinion are at 90-degree angles, and they're hypoid, which means that the pinion is not in the center of the ring gear. It's down on the bottom, so it actually screws through. It's really neat the way those things are threaded. They are. That's what a gear is, just threads. And so the bottom line, the backlash on a normal new differential is 6 to 8 thousandths, and a piece of paper is 2 thousandths. So there's not much backlash there at all. If you have more than that, you can have clunking noises in the drive line. But a vehicle that has 130,000 miles like yours will probably have 10 to 12 thousandths backlash, which is okay because those teeth on the ring gear and pinion are polished. I said all that to say that the pattern is very sophisticated and very closely created. And in order to hold that pattern, then the pinion has to be held in its position within its bearings, and so does the ring gear. Well, just think about it. Have you ever used one of those mix masters that has the little gears on the side? We've all used that, right? Well, any gear tries to push away from the other gear, and as a result, the load is on the bearings. So when you have a bearing that goes bad over time for age, moisture, whatever, it allows that pinion to get out of position, and that's when the differential will go. You'll hear a whine on acceleration, and then it'll go away if you let off the accelerator. I presume that you have no noise perceivable in the differential of the car.
I don't have any noise in transmissions that I'm aware of. It shifts hard, but it's no noise that I know of.
Well, I'm speaking to the differential now. So if you have no noise, if no whining noise when you accelerate and then it goes away if you let off the accelerator, that tells me that the bearings are okay and that the bearings and the pinion bearing is holding the ring gear and pinion in alignment, which is very important. Now, in order for that to happen those bearings are pre-loaded. When you remove the big nut, the castle nut that holds the pinion on, and then you pull the pinion gear off to get to the seal, which is what has to be done, you replace the seal and you put that pinion flange back on there. When the technician tightens that pinion flange, because there's a crush sleeve in there that can be, it's up to how tight you tighten it to how you crush it, and that's how you set the preload on it. Well, that's all well and good for a brand new setup, but when you have a used vehicle, and it doesn't matter whether it's 100 miles or 130,000 miles, like as yours does, when you go back together with it, if you over tighten the pinion, you will destroy the pinion bearing and burn it out and destroy the differential. So a simple pinion seal replacement can end up costing and damaging a differential, and that's why you don't want an amateur doing it, and that's why you want someone that's been there and done that. So I said all that to say that when you go to the dealer, you want to make sure that whoever, and this is a given you think, but trust me, it's not. When you go to a dealer or any service shop, including mine, there's usually one person in the shop who is the differential guru. And I'll say this, to work on ring gear and pinions is an art. It is a mechanical job. There's nothing electronic about it, but it is art. And in order to do, in fact, if you go to our Pinterest.com if you go to Pinterest.com/Bobby Likis and you look at our in the shop boards, you'll see several. And Marty, you should do that because we set up differentials when we have to replace ring gear and pinions. And when you think you got the pattern right, we use like a compound. It's a yellow compound, sort of like traffic paint. And you put that on the gears, and then you rotate the gears, and you look at the pattern, and wherever the contact points are on the ring gear and pinion, that will show gear to gear, and then you'll see a nice footprint. So yeah, it's a footprint. So it's very interesting, and not to take a lot of time, which I already have, but just want you to know that use the machine, don't change the filter, and change the fluid. That's fine, but just make sure that whichever technician works on the pinion seal to replace your vehicle, you want to make sure that technician is familiar with and sets up ring gears and pinion. And then one final word of caution. The seal is leaking because it's old and tired and hard and brittle, or the seal has worn a groove in the flange. If it has, and this is a common issue too, you want to make sure that they replace the flange. So if they give you a price for replacing the pinion, and then they come back and say, well, we got to replace the flange, there won't be any extra labor. But if there's a flange, because wherever the seal rides on the smooth surface of the flange yoke, then indeed it can create a groove. And you'll see, you should actually take pictures of it. You'll see where that seal has been riding, and you may feel a little small, with your fingernail, a little small bump there. But that's where the technician has to say, wait, this seal surface is not secure, so I'm going to replace the flange too. Hey, Marty, good luck, and I'm glad you called. That's a great question for everyone to know. Folks, I'll take your calls at 888-227-2546 when I come back.
If you want the best performing battery, then an Optimal battery is the perfect choice for you. Featuring spiral cell and pure flow technology, Optimal batteries are up to 15 times more vibration resistant and will last up to 3 times as long as a traditional flooded battery. How? The purity of materials, immobilized plates, and cast-on strap help enable longer life and better performance. Optimal batteries, the ultimate power source. Find your next battery at OptimalBatteries.com. That's OptimalBatteries.com.
These are the sounds of someone taking their eyes off the road. Texting while driving is more than distracting. It's dangerous. Do us all a favor. When you're on the road, stay off the phone. A message from CTIA, America's Wireless Companies, and the National Safety Council.
This car repair spotlight brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This week, a 2012 Lexus came into the shop with 65,000 miles and a check engine light. After scanning trouble codes, we located a variable valve timing solenoid wire had been chewed into by rodents. You'd be surprised at the number of cars affected by animals. Although the electronic solenoid was not harmed, we needed to splice a new connector and lead wires onto the Lexus engine harness. We reached out to our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional and ordered the wiring parts. Tommy, our ASE certified technician, removed the engine harness, carefully cut the damaged piece out, soldered the new connector in, then sealed with heat shrink. Good as new. O'Reilly Auto Parts Pro stepped up. Lexus fixed, everybody happy. Another great reason our first call for parts is O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
I'm 98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Good morning, folks. Welcome, and I hope that you're having a great day. I talked about oil changes to start with, and a question that's asked by almost universally every car owner is, how often should you change the oil? And of course the answer is it depends. There's no single interval oil change, and you can decide which oil change interval is best for you by considering a few factors. And the main thing is to think application. So longer trips versus shorter trips. Longer trips keep the engine's oil hot, which allow time to boil out the water contamination, because all engines accumulate condensation internally during the cold starts, whereas short trips rarely bring the oil temperature up to normal operating. And even in the newly designed engines that have multiple lower engine, upper engine thermostats, oil temperature rarely reaches 212 degrees, so the condensation remains to do its harm. It's accurate to say, folks, that short trips are considered, if you look in your owner's manual, which is a good idea, that short trips fall into the category of severe driving. So I would advise you to check your owner's manual. Also, there are other factors: the age and condition of an engine, the loads placed on the vehicle, the number of start-stops, all play a part in selecting the best oil change interval. So what's the answer? Well, if you drive 12 to 15,000 miles a year, and I recommend synthetic oils, what I use in my car, change your oil every 6 months or 7,500 miles. Always change the filter when changing the oil, because every new batch of oil is instantly contaminated to some degree by the remaining oil that never is drained out of the engine. You can't get all the old oil out. And then for those of you who drive less than 6,000 or 7,000 miles a year, you might change your oil twice a year and have an anniversary, some birth date or some, summer, winter. Preferably, I would say before summer and then before winter. And then last but not least, always use the same viscosity oil in both winter and summer according to the manufacturer specification that built that engine. It's more about the engine tolerances than it is about the location of where you live. Let's go to Kansas, speaking of where you live, and talk to DJ Moore. Kansas, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Good morning, Bobby.
Morning, sir.
Yes. I got a couple of questions. One of them has to do with this is an older 1990 Ford F-250 tired truck. I had it in the shop. The analysis was it probably got a head gasket leaking some on one cylinder. And my question was, seems like you mentioned a product or something that maybe you put in the coolant, and they might help the situation, and rather than spend money an older engine, you might get by for a while.
It's anything's better than spending a lot of money, and especially you've got a car with 28 years old. That product is K-Seal, and it's ASTM certified. It's a great product. We use it. In fact, I said last week that I was going to tell a story about K-Seal, and I will a little bit later in the program today, which is very interesting. But for your purpose, definitely that's a K-Seal candidate that will save you a lot of money. And if K-Seal won't fix that vehicle, you can't fix the engine. So what's your second question?
Well, the second question, this is another pickup. In extreme cold recently, I think there was a coolant leak somewhere, and I thought maybe it was water pump, but I'm not positive. But when the weather turned warmer, it doesn't seem to leak. So is that just an indication that I've got a weak seal on a water pump maybe? Or
Yeah, maybe. Well, here's what I do in those cases, and I've had a couple of those. I had a Mini Cooper that had a phantom coolant leak. It never leaked on a garage floor, but it ultimately would lose coolant. And I finally, after it actually took me about a month and a half, almost 2 months, to find that the thermostat gasket on this Mini Cooper, of course, it's buried, and it was a supercharged Mini Cooper. The thermostat was buried down under, and it would leak in the middle of the night. You know, in other words, water pumps and like radiator caps, they keep the pressure in, but they also have a seal so that you can have a vacuum on the system, because when the engine heats up, a coolant expands. When it cools down, and when it expands, it forces the coolant past the radiator cap into the reservoir, and then when it cools down overnight, during the night, it draws that water, that coolant, back into the engine. And that's so that no air, that's a sealed system, and that's the best, actually that's the best invention that someone ever came up with. And there's a story behind that too, because Chrysler tried to take that, as I understand, tried to take that away from the person that invented it, or tried to use it. Anyway, so what I would look for is I would take like a dentist mirror or an automotive mirror that we have, those extension, and look at the weep hole in the water pump. And the weep hole, every water pump has on its snout, where the shaft comes out and then the pulley drives that water pump, there's a hole, like in the bottom of your chin, underneath your tongue, you drill a hole. And the reason they do that is so that whenever and if the water pump leaks, the coolant won't leak out the front of the water pump. It will drip down the underneath the chin of the water pump, so as to not get that slick coolant on a belt, and then you lose your power steering and those sorts of things. And so this gives you an indication. That's what a weep hole is for, and also for allowing of pressure differentials as well. So you can take a mirror, look under the water pump, and at the mirror and the flashlight, and look for what I call ring around the collar. And DJ, it may not be that you see a leak, but if just like you sprayed Windex on a window and just went away and came back when it was dry, you would see a really messy window. Well, but it would be dried. So if you don't see a leak, you can see streaks where the coolant has run down and oxidized, and it will be chalky and white or green or pink. You see where I'm going there?
Yeah, I wouldn't have. Well, I guess unless coolant got low, but recently had some 0 and below cold weather, and I've seen it, except for I crawled under there because my starter wouldn't engage when it was cold, or disengage, I say.
Oh, wow.
And so, but once the weather moderated, well, I didn't see any coolant, and same thing with the starter.
Well, I'll tell you, in closing, I would recommend you put K-Seal in both vehicles, because
really?
There's no damage. K-Seal is unlike other sealants and stop leaks. K-Seal uses a ceramic product, so it's totally safe. It's good money spent. So if I were you, I would still look at the water pump just to have that knowledge, so that later on, if it fails, you'll know that it's on its way out and you were pre-warned. But in the meantime, you can put K-Seal in both vehicles. In fact, I'd love for you to call me back after the fact and give me a follow-up report. Would you do that?
Well, I can do that.
Okay. All right, my friend. Hey, thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you, Bobby.
You're welcome, sir. We'll take another call from Fred. Fred, good morning. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Good morning, Bobby. I have an 03 Cadillac STS Seville, F 4.6 anyway, 107,000 miles, and it's leaking oil.
Right.
I took it to two very, very good shops. They both said they'd have to pull that engine to fix that leak because of that aluminum block. Do you think there's any other way of repairing that oil leak apart from pulling that engine?
No. Of course, it depends on where the leak, is coming from. But my question, where is the leak? Have they determined where the leak starts or where it originates? Because if it's a rear main seal, a pan gasket, or a timing cover gasket, something like that, yeah, they have to pull the engine. Well, not a timing cover. Well, I don't know. That engine is transverse, so yeah, you'd have to drop the engine. But that's just part of the repair. Now, if it's leaking because of the block porosity, then that's another question, that you won't stop that. There are some, I guess, some epoxy-based sealants that you can buy. If you can certainly try, but and the bottom line is, without knowing where the leak is, I can't say yes or no. But it doesn't sound like it's something that is wrong, because trust me, if these folks could fix the engine without dropping it, they would do that, because that is, once you pull an engine out of a car, it's an 03 model, once you drop an engine out of the car, do you use the same engine mounts? I mean, it's nothing to do with the job, Fred, but it's your car, so
Yeah.
if you got it back and then 2 weeks later, it needed an engine mount, then they've got to jack the engine up, and they're already there. So I would go along with the shop. I would have a serious discussion and say, I'd like to address not only the oil leak to seal the engine, but I'd like to address what other ancillary repairs might come up. And in other words, you gotta disconnect the hose. Well, how long's the radiator hose been on there? You have to disconnect the air conditioning lines. You have to recharge the air conditioner. You have to disconnect the power steering hose. So it's not just to unplug the engine and plug it back in. There are a lot of connections that will be disconnected and reconnected. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. Neither shop was all that excited about doing that job.
I know.
They said that's a heck of a job, and they said the best thing to do is just either keep it and just keep adding the oil back in, or get rid of it.
Well, that's a great point, and you might want to weigh that. Anyway, have a talk with them again, and let them do here's what I want you to do in closing. I'd like for you to go back to the shop and have them to perform an annual inspection all over the whole car to tell you what condition the rest of the car is in. You may think but look at the not differential, because it's front. Look at the brakes and look at the tires and the steering and those sorts of things, and make your decision on whether or not it's worthy of the repair, and then you'll know. Okay, hey, gotta go, gotta break. Folks, coming up, got a great gentleman in the queue right now, Jim Grundy with Grundy Insurance. So if you have a classic car like you'll want to hear what he has to say. Stay tuned. We'll be back. We recently sat down with Kate Searlick, Global Product Management Lead with Johnson Controls. Kate talked about the advantages of AGM batteries, noting they outperform traditional flooded batteries when partially charged, a key benefit if your normal driving consists of shorter trips. Let's hear from Kate.
Today's charging systems are not negatively affected by installing an AGM battery, and no modifications are needed for the alternator or the charging system. In fact, an AGM battery actually performs better when partially charged than a standard flooded battery. This means if you're not driving long enough distances to fully charge the battery, an AGM battery more efficiently performs and not consume additional power from the alternator. We were able to validate this in fleet testing we conducted in Las Vegas, where we witnessed AGM batteries providing up to twice the service life of a standard flooded battery.
AGM batteries help meet the electrical demands put on today's vehicles, and Johnson Controls is the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries. Learn more at autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets, they're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I'll take your car questions soon at 888 Car Clinic. That's 888-227-2546. On Car Clinic Network, we have many classic car aficionado listeners. And it's my supreme pleasure this morning to welcome Jim Grundy, avid collector of all eras of automobiles. And Jim has a special passion for fine brass-era vehicles. Jim enjoys all of them at the finest concours in the country. All classic car owners and lovers know about Jim's dad, James Grundy Sr., who invented, get this folks, agreed value insurance policy, that's right, in 1947 that helps motorists protect their investment in their automobiles. So now it's our pleasure to talk with Jim, who is the president and CEO of Grundy Insurance. Jim, having said that, thank you for joining us today on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Hi, Bobby. It's a pleasure to be here, and you've told half the story already, but maybe I'll fill in a few blanks as we go.
Well, please do, and share with our Car Clinic listeners and viewers at what point, while you're at it, a vehicle qualifies for classic vehicle insurance.
It sounds a little crazy, Bobby, but we will insure any car regardless of year, in other words, 2019 to 1900, if it's used and maintained as a collector and it has some milestone significance. Limited edition, restored, custom, they all qualify.
So someone, to qualify, they have to determine the value in order to insure it correctly. And, you know, Jim, I'll just say this. For every classic car, either owner or potential seller or buyer, it's always, my car's worth more than I really think it is. So I find this time with you very interesting because I need some help actually trying to determine a value of my classic car. And so let's talk about the agreed value and then the stated value from an insurance perspective.
And you hit on some very tricky terms right there. Now, let me tell your listeners right now, they want agreed value coverage. That means that the policyholder and the insurance company agree in advance that if their car is destroyed in a fire or stolen or totaled in any way, that the amount listed on the policy is the amount they're going to get. No wear and tear deductions, no age deductions, no depreciation deductions. The deal is done when we agree upon the value. Very confusingly, a stated policy doesn't say that. It doesn't mean that you get the amount stated. What the amount listed on the policy or stated actually means is it's the most that you can possibly get. But it still has a clause in there that'll deduct for age or wear and tear or the company's appraiser's opinion of what your car is worth. So stated value doesn't protect the policyholder. it protects the insurance company, and Lord knows they don't need any more protection than they have.
Hey, folks, this is coming from an individual who owns an insurance company. So, I love it. I appreciate the fact. And again, folks, that's the agreed value. So to that end, before we get too much deeper into our conversation, and by the way, folks, we're talking with Jim Grundy, President and CEO of Grundy Insurance, classic car insurance. So I have a classic car. How do we agree on its value?
So you probably have a pretty good idea what your car's worth in your head. You know what you paid for it. We all watch all the auctions today. There's 1,000 books and guides on what cars are worth. So typically customers come to us and they say, we think our car is worth X. And we have a database, as you might imagine. We insure over 1 million collector cars, so we have pretty good reference tools. And we ask new policyholders to send us in a picture of their car. And if it's a customer modified car, they'll give us a little description or pictures of the modifications. And then we evaluate that with what they send. And typically, and when I say typically, I mean more than 90% of the time, we agree on the value they request. Sometimes they're too low, sometimes they're too high. But usually we'll come back and in one or two passes at it, if there is any question, we'll come to an equitable agreement. And once we write the policy, we've made the deal.
So at Grundy Insurance, you obviously have a rate card, or how do you establish the rate, Jim? Because it seems to me that if I have a car that I think is worth $75,000 and you think it's worth $50,000, and we meet in the middle, can I buy up?
Can you buy more insurance?
Yes.
For paying for it?
Yes.
It's not the intent of the policy. The idea is to insure the car for what it's really worth. Now, if it increases year over year, just call us and we'll increase it year over year. And that happens every day. That happens every year on some of our renewals. In fact, a policyholder can elect to have protection put on their policy, and we calculate the inflation rate every year based on how the market's going. And we'll automatically do it in a lot of cases.
So with a rate, with Grundy's rate, how does that work with regard to classic cars versus conventional automobile insurance?
Well, first of all, as you may know, in all the advertising, typically our antique car rates are less than half of regular insurance rates.
Wow.
And there's two very important reasons for that. One is our cars can't be used as everyday drivers, so they don't spend as many hours on the road, and they don't get driven in rush hour traffic, all that sort of thing. And the other big reason is our cars have to be maintained and garaged in a safe and secure place, which means that typical things that cause accidents and problems with car insurance don't affect our rates because of the limited use of the cars we insure.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. And, when you think about it, and folks, please understand what Jim just stated. You've got a classic car. For me, Jim, I don't even drive my vehicle. It's just outside our car clinic studio, literally, and it stays inside. And I've owned this car 34 years. I've driven it since its complete restoration in 2004. I've driven it 1,230 miles.
Bobby, you can do more than that. Come on, everybody. You better get that car on the road. But I'm going to tell you one other thing, too, about why we, year after year, don't have to increase our rates. When a car guy gets in his car to drive it, typically he's driving the car, he's listening to the engine, he's enjoying shifting it if it's a manual shifter.
Right.
He's in touch with the car on the road.
Right.
Rarely do you see a guy driving an antique car with a cell phone in his hand or, texting or daydreaming or something like that. He's in the car to drive it and enjoy it, which means he's paying attention. So antique car people and car collectors are just basically better drivers.
Well, you heard it from the horse's mouth. You heard it from the king of insurance, folks. I want you to know. So, Jim, what you just said is that yours truly, which would be Bobby Likis, is a better driver than 99% of the people who are tuned in, unless they own a classic car. And you don't have to respond to that, but you're right. You're right on the money. And I'm anal about my automobile, and I choose my roads that I go for my route. No cell phones, period. That's just not in my makeup. So what about a breakdown? I mean, a car is a car. Even though my car is in excellent condition, I could have a fuel pump go out, or a flat tire, or something.
We
a breakdown.
Give you a limited amount of coverage, depending on the state. We provide $400 or $500 worth of coverage to every car we insure in the event the car breaks down. And even if you break down on a weekend tour, we have coverage to pay for your hotels and special expenses that you might incur if you're stuck far from home.
Well, let's just say that I go to Pebble Beach, and I decide to take my car, because I would truck the car there. But then we're going to do a drive around, which is typical, or Amelia Island, which is closer to my neck of the woods. We're on the Gulf Coast of Florida. Amelia Island, of course, is on there in Jacksonville. So let's say that I'm there for the event. Do I have to have a special rider for that event, or is my car covered while I'm there on the premises?
Oh, you're covered. We expect you to go to things like that. In fact, we're loading our trailer this week to head to Amelia Island ourselves with a couple of cars and all our equipment.
Well, it's very eye-opening, and it's very refreshing. And some of the anxiety, as I mentioned, I don't drive my car enough, but like a lot of classic car owners, folks, Jim's really, the information that you provided to all of our Car Connect listeners is really valuable, because we sometimes look at the weather, always look at the weather, we look at the route, and then we decide, well, is it worth it to get my car out? Because the last time I got any car out, someone ran into me, or I'm at a traffic light, and you can't dictate what people can do. So to that end,
when that happens, that's what we're here for, Bobby. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that we have the highest claim settlement satisfaction rating in the industry. And I know that's a mouthful, but the bottom line is our customers are more satisfied with our service than they are with any other insurance company's services.
So again,
and one more thing, back to Amelia Island. I think that's next week. And so everybody knows that's listening. We will be there with a 1910 Thomas Flyer, and I'll be driving around in a 1954 Jaguar XK.
Well, just for your information, sir, my daily driver is a XJL that was designed by Ian Callum. Of course, you know who Ian Callum is. Mm-hmm. And Tata, of course, bought that franchise, or that manufacturing and that line, that models, a JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, from Ford Motor Company, thank God. And he's done a whale of a job. So, and I've certainly worked on my share of Jags historically. That really, they're so interesting, they're so beautiful, and they are of such a great value. So you're going to be at the Amelia Island next week. In the meantime, now, of course, you'll put your car in a trailer, or in a box, of course, and ship it to Amelia Island. And how many miles would you put on your vehicle during the event?
You know, back and forth to the hotel and back and forth to the auctions, and we're going on the little road tour that they have down there. I don't know, a few hundred miles over the course of the weekend, I guess.
Wow. Well, that's so interesting. And one final question, Jim, for our Car Clinic listeners, a website so that we can get more information about Grundy Insurance.
That's easy, www.grundy.com.
Grundy, Grundy.com, folks. You heard it. Jim, what a pleasure to have you on the air. And were it in my schedule, I would have to bring the radio to Amelia Island, and perhaps we can arrange that at some later date. In the meantime, folks, you've seen, if you've been watching Watch Bobby Live, some of the very interesting cars that this gentleman has driven and his company insures. So, Jim, with that, I want to thank you for joining us on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I look forward to meeting you one day, and
we'll talk soon. Have a great weekend.
Bobby, thank you very much. You too.
Now, how cool is that? And folks, just for your information, today is the day of the Amelia Island event. So you can, deduce from there that that was a conversation that I had with Jim Grundy last week. And the reason that we had him on the show last week is because he's really busy today, because he is currently at the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegant, which is a fantastic event. And I will tell you, there's two places I'd like to be right now. The first one is right here where I am with you. The second one is right there with Jim Grundy. And, what we'll do when we go for the break, because the end of this first hour is coming up, I see we have a call coming in from Kansas, and if I have time, I'll certainly put Robert on the phone. But in the meantime, during the break and between the 2 hours, because every Saturday from 10 till noon, we come to you Eastern Time, 10 to noon Eastern Time at Watch Bobby Live or on your local AM and or FM radio stations or your phone. It's really neat. So the bottom line, we come to you at 10 o'clock. So we'll reach out to the Amelia Island event, and if we can't get Jim Grundy, he's probably roaming or driving his brass-equipped automobile. Just if you watch Bobby Live, you saw some of those gorgeous cars that he owns and that he insures. And I'll tell you, I am quite taken with the fact that he can state that he has the most satisfied claims rating of all insurance companies. I can really say that's how do you be a car guy and own an insurance company at the same time? I think it's fortunate for those of us who own classic cars. I'll just say that. In the meantime, during the time between this hour and the next hour, we're going to reach out and we're going to have a report of some kind live from Amelia Island. How about that? Fabio, will you make that happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There you go. Yes, sir. That's yes, dear. That's just, yeah. You're married, so you know the deal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what a great show! What a great first hour, and we got another hour coming up. And so, what I'd like for you to do is to take a break, and at 6 after the top of the hour, we'll come back to you live right here from the center of the automotive universe. What a great Saturday and what fun it is, and just bring a smile to my face. I'd love to have your questions about your cars. I know that Robert's on the phone from Kansas, but I don't have the time, and we'll have Robert on the next hour if he'd like to call back. 888-227-2546. I'm Bobby Likis. Likis, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Grundy Insurance began selling agreed value policies in 1947. These policies are set at the time they're issued, detailing the amount a policyholder will receive and an insurance company will pay in the event of total loss or theft of a vehicle. It's the safest way to protect the restoration cost and appreciating value of collector cars. Actual cash value policies and stated value policies do not establish the amount in advance. Learn more about agreed value policies at the Insurance 101 section at Grundy.com. That's Grundy.com. Berryman's B12 Chem Tool features HEST, or high-energy solvent technology. Using a combination of stronger solvents, HEST technology helps maximize one-tank cleanup of intake valves, fuel injectors, and combustion chambers. But don't take our word for it. Dennis H. was on his way to Carlsbad Caverns and used B12 Chem Tool on his motorhome. He experienced a 9% increase in MPG. Pretty amazing since the drive included a 7,000-foot climb into the mountains of New Mexico. Learn more about Berryman's B12 Chem Tool at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with. And by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition Lemulls. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's vehicle protection program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1 minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning. Welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Just proud to have you in the house. What a great day it is. I hope that where you are, the weather is treating you nicely. And if it's a nice sunny day, then get your convertible out or put your top back or your sunroof back and enjoy the weather. Or if it's cold, close it all up and turn the heater on. Oh, by the way, speaking of heaters, so recently we had a vehicle in the shop that the owner had been listening to me on the radio, and actually one of my clients for years, and he had an issue with his vehicle and a thermostat stuck, and he listened to me and turned the heater on and turned the heat on blast wide open. Good thing it was this time of year. Otherwise, normally in Florida, he wouldn't have been able to do that, at least not comfortably. The long story short, by running the heater, he was able to keep the engine from overheating and made his way home and then towed the vehicle in. So that's a great thing to remember. If your radiator is stopped up or thermostat or something like that, heaven forbid, you can always turn your heater on in the car because the heater is a small radiator in and of itself. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part today by K-Seal. Speaking of cooling system, K-Seal, the one-step permanent multi-purpose system for coolant leak repair, including head gaskets, engine blocks, water pumps, and radiators. You can learn more about K-Seal. Where? KSeal.com. Back with your calls. Don't touch that dial. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element UltraStat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The UltraStat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The UltraStat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad UltraStat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. We recently had an 09 Honda Pilot come into the shop with 169,000 miles on the odometer. The vehicle owner said the cabin was starting to smell like coolant, and he was concerned. Upon closer inspection, we found a heater core leak. Choices were to keep the vehicle and make a repair, which at best is half a day's labor plus parts, or sell the vehicle and buy a different used car that could have its own set of problems. We presented a third option, K-Seal. You've heard me talk about K-Seal before. Well, I don't just talk about it, we actually use the product in our service shop. It's a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Other sealers use sodium silicate, which has a tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Our customer went with K-Seal, and 1 month later, no more leak. Learn more about K-Seal at KSeal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let me give you a rundown of what we're going to do this hour, because we're going to do a fast and furious hour. I know that because we already have 4 of our 6 lines, 5 of our 6 lines are taken. Let me give you the number. So now is the time to get in. You may have to hold a while, but I'll try my best. And, well, I won't use the word try. I will put you on the air. 888-227-2546. We mentioned during last hour, which is our first hour, every Saturday, 2 hours, 10 till noon Eastern Time, right here from the center of the automotive universe, folks, which just happens to be a studio that we designed, built by Acoustic Systems, that is an all-digital studio with a 10,000-pound floor that's off-grade. And this studio is located within a 15,000-square-foot automotive service shop. So it's the best of both worlds. 50, 60 hours a week, we talk the talk and walk the walk on the service side. So I know what you're going through from a shop owner standpoint of 47 years, and then from a radio host for 27 years, I can share that with you. So without further ado, we're going to go, as we promised, or as actually, Fabio, as you promised to me, and you came through, thank you so much. We're going to go to Amelia Island. You know, we talked with Jim Grundy, the CEO of the Grundy Insurance Company, during the last hour. Well, I promised you that we would go to Amelia Island live and get a report. We didn't get Jim Grundy, but we got someone that was going to share with us what's going on there. Ed Miles, live from the Amelia Island. Ed, good morning and welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Well, welcome to Amelia Island, Bobby. It's beautiful, wispy clouds on a blue sky, with the ocean breeze, and out on the veranda of the Ritz Crossing here. It's a beautiful day, beautiful people, and beautiful cars from all over the world, Bobby.
Well, I couldn't, there's so much I want to talk about. We've got a lot of folks in the queue, so I promised those folks, you know, we have Lloyd and Jeffy and Jim and Robert, that I will, you know, come to them as quickly as possible. But in the meantime, how many cars and what are you most impressed with there at the Ritz-Carlton Amelia Island at the Concours d'Elegant?
Well, they have several notable cars, some Cadillac, a 38 Cadillac V16 limo that was used by Pope Paul the 12th. They got a 41 Cadillac that was used by Franklin D. Roosevelt, a 1956 Cadillac by Eisenhower. And so those are notable of interest. And they have two 54 gull-wing Mercedes. One was a barn find, number 43, platform number 43, and then it's like it was found. And then they have platform number 44, which has been fully restored. So very notable cars. But on my end of the spectrum, down at ground level, the launch pad for Cape Kennedy is not far from here, but also in Ocala, Florida, Big Daddy Don Garlett's here with his Top Fuel dragsters. They're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Gainesville Raceway, which was another launching pad for the first run over 300 miles an hour in a quarter. So at 12:30, Big Daddy's going to fire up that 10,000 horsepower nitro burning engine, and it's going to reverberate for miles around here. And there's probably some people in this shop that have never heard that before and will be quite startled.
Well, you know, to me and to a lot of folks in the classic car world, that's an oxymoron to have Don Gartlett's and his 10,000 horsepower top fuel car there with a 1908 Stutz. I mean, you know, in the big scheme of things, that's kind of the best of both worlds. You talk about the old and new, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just one quick note about Don Gartlett's. If you have an opportunity to speak to him, a good friend of mine, Harry Schwartz, here in Pensacola, built bodies for Don Gartlett's. They were magnesium for his top fuel cars, and that was really, really interesting. That goes back a ways, and I could tell you some stories about Don Gartlett's, but we don't have time. I just want to thank you for the report there. And by the way, Ed, during the first hour of today's Car Clinic broadcast, there are 2 hours every Saturday, we had the pleasure of having Jim Grundy from Grundy's Insurance on the air with us, talking about his cars, and he loves the brass era. You know, those older cars with all the brass headlights and the brass radiators, and I can just see them now. I wish I was there, really. So do me a favor, if you would, please, and go see Jim and tell him that we all talked about him, and that I'm going to take him up on his offer at one point in time in the future, and I'm going to bring the rolling Car Clinic show to one of the classic car events. And before I let you go, what's your favorite of all that you've seen so far?
Well, they have a totally enclosed Mercedes special built car. It's beautiful and sleek. And they have it roped off. You see a lot of it, but they do have some of the Nissan, the '68 Nissan that raced in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That's kind of a rare car.
Yeah, really.
There's so many huge there's cars of every era, about every type around the lake, out on the green, on the fairways of the lake. They have special areas for GM products. They have special areas for Porsche. They have special areas for BMW. So there's something for everybody. Wow. And motorcycles. Motorcycles here. And this is also to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the first Volkswagen Beetle to come into the United States in 1949. So this is quite a bit of history, a wide spectrum. But I like the more I like the '60s muscle cars.
Okay. I got you.
Cars,
well, Ed, what a pleasure. Thank you so much. I'll let you get back to it. Sounds like there's a lot going on in your background. You tell Grundy that we said hello, and enjoy yourself, and we'll look forward to maybe at a later date you can call back and give a recap, and we have a little better connection there. But enjoy the day, and thank you so much for calling from Amelia Island.
Thank you for what you do, Bobby. We love your show and all the information you give us.
Appreciate you. Thanks. Bye-bye. Well, it's just exciting. It really is. And I do wish that I was there. I did go to the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegant years ago, and that's when they had the Ford Thunderbird that wasn't in the market yet, but they had a prototype there, and it was so fresh, this prototype, that they had, you could see the yellow 3M cement that they used to glue the weather strip on at the last minute, because they did some of a messy job there, but the car was beautiful. But it was so interesting to see that black car, and there it was on the 18th green at Pebble Beach, in California, and here we are in Jacksonville on the East Coast. Let's go to Lloyd and take a call from Lloyd. Lloyd, thank you for your patience and for holding. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Oh, thank you, sir. I have a 2004 Chevy Venture that I have a leaking brake line.
Okay.
The brake line comes up to the manifold from the wheels, and it and three other the steel lines go through a plastic clip, and I dogged if I can figure out how to get that clip apart.
Well, as a rule, those clips break when you take them apart.
Okay.
So what I would do if I were you, I would go to, if you really want to save that clip, after you break it, you'll see what you should have done. I mean, I've been there, done that, right? So help me to understand, is it a fully enclosed clip that has a surround, like a band around it, like your belt on your waist?
Well, not exactly. It looks like there's a little hard to describe here. It's roughly square, about 3/8 of an inch thick.
Right.
And then maybe about an inch square. All four of the, I'm assuming those are all the wheel lines.
Yes.
Go through that. On the top, there's almost like a bow tie shaped insert. That's not exactly right, but it's the best I can think of on the moment. And I've tried prying that out and can't get anywhere with it.
Well, on a lot of those things, of course, like in my Porsche, there's an exact duplicate of what you just said that holds two, and there's a bolt in the middle of it that allows the two halves to come apart. It's kind of like a yoke, is what well, here's what I would do if I were you. I would go to the Chevy dealer or to a recycling yard, whichever one's closest to you, and I would look in the book, ask the parts man to bring up the book, which is going to be a page on a computer versus a book, but bring that up. Or you know what, Lloyd? Why don't you do this? Go online and Google that particular part, and then you'll see pictures of that part. And it doesn't have to be exactly for your year of venture. It could be a later or earlier model year, so you can see what a new one looks like. And then maybe if you break it, you just buy a new one and put it on there. That's what I would do. It's got to come off. And by the way, Dorman Products makes pre-formed brake lines for your Chevy. Dorman Parts. Folks, I got a break. I'll be back. This Engine Care Spotlight is brought to you by Walker Products, a leading manufacturer of quality fuel system components and engine sensors. Today's vehicles are being pushed to new heights with increased fuel economy and fewer tailpipe emissions, which has created the need for a smarter and more sophisticated exhaust after-treatment system, featuring an array of sensors designed to help monitor and control the different aspects of vehicle operation and health. The EGT, or exhaust gas temperature sensor, plays a major role in multiple processes, and it's critical that the EGT is performing within their limits. But not all EGT sensors are created equal. Housing styles and materials vary, in addition to resistance types and temperature ratings. It's imperative that a consumer replace their EGT sensor with a correct OEM factory-style sensor. Walker Products has been supplying the automotive aftermarket since 1946 and manufactures all of its EGTs using only OEM-based sensors. Need a new sensor? Walker Products offers OE quality at aftermarket prices. Drive to walkerproducts.com. We recently worked on an 03 Buick Park Avenue with a 3.8 engine, and the vehicle had been a workhorse, 190,000 miles and more. That said, fuel economy had slipped from 24 mpg to 19. On cold startup, the check engine light flashed. In addition to rough idling, engine fuel trim pointed toward carbon issues. A quick scan revealed random misfire code P0300. The codes were cleared, and after a visual inspection of the ignition system and fuel filter change, we added a can of Berryman B12 Chem Tool to a fresh tank of fuel. After a 400-mile round trip and a second can of Berryman B12 Chem Tool, fuel economy was back to 24 miles per gallon and idle quality was restored. Many times, complex running issues are traced to carbon issues on today's vehicles. Fuel system maintenance starts with simple tank additives as the first step in carbon cleaning your engine. The next time your vehicle is sluggish or experiencing fuel economy that's not up to par, try Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Learn more at berrymanproducts.com. That's berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone
From Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. What a great program, what a great hour, what a great Saturday. I hope that you're all doing well. It was so much fun to hear from Amelia Island. And folks, if you have an opportunity, just Google Amelia Island and the concours there, because there's a Cars and Coffee event. And then you can drive the golf club at Amelia Island, and you can be with like-minded enthusiasts there on the 5th, the 1st, the 10th, and the 18th fairways. So it's just a great event, and I'm just proud to be able to be a car guy today, because that really excites me. Let's go to New York And Jeffy, welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bob. Yourself?
Terrific, terrific. And so I had posed a question earlier about should you turn off the accessories before you turn off the car or before you start the engine up. And according to Miss Hannah, you have the answer, or you have your answer. So I'd love to hear your answer. And folks, here's the question. Should you turn off accessories or worry about accessories when you start an automobile? Jeffy?
Okay. Now, the reason why I always shut them off is because it can be a heck of a draw on a solenoid, not to mention you can have low voltage issues, heating issues. I always say, rule of thumb, as soon as you park your car, shut the accessories off. And if you do forget, first thing in the morning when you put your key in, make sure they are shut off, and that's just less stress on all the electrical stuff.
That's your final answer?
Well, that's what I do.
Okay. Now, and let me say this in all candor here, because I have to say this, and it was a loaded question. Well, not really a loaded question. It's just that it's a common question. There are three positions for an ignition switch. There's the accessory. There's off, of course, but then there's accessory, there's run, and there's crank. And accessory, of course, is that when you go from off to the accessory, that's the first position, and then the dash lights are not on, the radio would work, and the fan would work, and accessories would run, of course. And then there's the run position, which is where the key stays as you're driving the car. Then there's the crank position. And let me share with you, because I want you to try this. Then there's a no zone, no power position. And it's really not a position, well, I guess it is, it's during the sweep. When you put the key to run position and you slowly turn it to where it engages the starter, right? In between the run and the spring-loaded cranking engagement, there's a no power zone. And before the starter is ever received any voltage, or the solenoid has received any voltage, all accessories are automatically turned off. And here's what you should try. This is so cool. And because all cars are made this way. Turn the key on to run. Don't start the engine. Turn the radio on. And then slowly turn the key, very slowly, to the crank mode, but do not crank it. Just go slowly. And before you go and get to the crank mode, the radio will shut off automatically, because all cars shut down the accessories so that, to your point, and well said, you get all of the voltage to the starter, because that's the single biggest draw of current on any automobile at any given time, especially in cold weather and also in hot weather. So it really is not necessary to physically turn switches on and off.
Well, I'm old school. What can I say, Bob?
Well, hey, I'll tell you what. You just keep doing what you're doing, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and we'll meet in the middle. How about that?
That sounds good. And when you brought up the wheat hole, by the way, it had me laughing so hard, because every time I see water drip out of a wheat hole, the first thing I do is cry, because I know how expensive it's going to be for the repair.
Yeah, okay. Hey, thank you so much. And before one last question, what's the weather like in New York today?
Oh, it's actually beautiful right now. It might be up in the 30s. It's very sunny out here at Owego this morning. Not looking too bad. I think we're in for a pretty good weekend before the next snowstorm hits.
Terrific. Hey, thank you so much for your call and your participation and tuning in to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your friendship. Appreciate you.
You got it, Bob. I'm wearing my O'Reilly hat that I won, so every time your show comes on, I put it on.
Yay! Okay. Thank you, my friend. Well, folks, there you go. That's why I'm here every Saturday. Let's go to Mississippi from New York. Let's see if there's any difference in the dialogue between Mississippi and the dialect. Jim, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Y'all are welcome, too. How about that?
Here we go. Okay. How you doing this morning?
Doing fine, Bob. Bobby, I really love your show. I listen all the time, and I really respect your advice.
Thank you.
I got a 2001 Town and Country, and I got two problems with it. One's the air conditioner, the other's the brakes. I know on the old type brakes where you got wheel cylinders, you got a tattletale sign you had a leaky wheel cylinder. I've got a problem on this left front about once every 3 months. I haven't found out what's causing it yet. About once every 3 months, the brakes will start giving out on me. I will go to bleed the brakes. I have no problem on none of the brakes except the left front. I have to pump it up 3 or 4 times to get fluid to come out. Now, how can I tell if it's the wheel, if it's the caliper, or if it's the hose?
Well, because the hose is before the caliper. The hose feeds the caliper. That's a good question, but think about it. If you pump the brake pedal and you've got pressure on the brake pedal, and you open the bleed of the caliper, immediately, once it comes off its seat, once the little bleed valve comes off its seat, which is a 45-degree taper block, then fluid will gush out. Well, depending on how far you open it, and so if there's no fluid at that, now let me say this: we know the fitting is okay because you've bled that system in the last 6 months, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we know the fitting is okay. So what feeds the fitting? What feeds the caliper? What comes first, the chicken or, well, don't go there.
That'll be your master cylinder.
No, the hose.
The hose?
The master cylinder is doing its job because it's a wide open hose. There are 2 lines that come from the master cylinder, front and rear ports. So it would be, in my opinion, I would replace the rubber hose that feeds I would replace both fronts. I never replaced just one unless it got damaged in an accident. So I'd put a pair of hoses, but I'd put the first one on the left side just for grins. What's your second question?
All right. My air conditioner, the back air conditioner went out. I bought some bull plugs and plugged it off under the passenger seat.
Yes.
It just got a front air.
Okay.
The compressor, when I put that dye in, the compressor was leaking, and it was leaking back here too. So I solved the back problem.
Okay.
I got another compressor put on it, where you bolt your high and low pressure lines back in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find the right O-rings. The ones that's on it are pink. The only ones I can find to replace it are green.
The green's
and
okay.
Every time I put these on, they leak.
Well, okay, you're doing something wrong. Let me say this: the greens are okay because I have 5 drawers in a beautiful cabinet. That's a portable cabinet, like a little fishing tackle, with slide-out drawers. And every imaginable O-ring, and we're there every day for all sorts of purposes. Power steering, and Ford, famous Ford O-ring leakage. So if you're having problems with a leak, do you know if the O-ring is the right size? The right size is super important, and it has to be captured correctly, which means that what you would do is you would look at the female side. You've got the female fitting, and then you've got the male fitting that has the neck collar where the O-ring rests. You with me?
Yeah, so
okay.
there's like a little rubber gasket or
yeah. Well, it's aluminum, but it's a little, as if you took an aluminum pipe and put a ring around it and then made it part of the pipe, you would have a collar. So now, having said that, you need to take the new rubber O-ring that you found, and first put it on the female part of the insert, and see how tightly the inside diameter of the O-ring fits over the pipe. It must slide on easily, but it cannot have any play in there. In other words, like a collar.
Roll down and fall in a hole is what you're saying.
No, I'm not talking about in the hole. I'm talking about on the probe. I'm talking about on the male part. So here's what
That's what I mean.
Okay.
It slides down it, but when it goes in that notch, it fits tight.
Well, here's the point. If you take the female fitting, just like a shirt on your collar. If you've got a shirt that fits perfectly with no breathing room, it's uncomfortable. The O-ring has to fit perfectly with no breathing room around the male part of the pipe.
Conversely, on the female side, the outside diameter, not the inside, the outside diameter of the O-ring has to fit within its capturing socket, so that when you put the two pieces together, the outside of the O-ring is sealing the socket, the inside of the O-ring is sealing the male probe.
I got you on that.
And that depends 100% on the size and diameter of the O-ring and the thickness of the band. And when I say the band, just like a coil spring is nothing but a 5/8 of an inch wire that they wrap and make a wire, and a ballpoint pen is the same thing as a coil spring in a car, except it's a little Mickey Mouse spring that is a 10/1000th of an inch in diameter, whereas a coil spring is an inch in diameter, or a sway bar is 1.25 inches in diameter. Your O-ring is going to be 30 thousandths in diameter, or 40, or 50, or 20. You see where I'm going?
Yes, sir. Just make sure it's lubricated good with that oil.
Oh, yeah.
Oil.
Okay. All right, Jim, you got enough ammunition there, so go forth and do your thing.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Jim. 888-227-2546. Fred is also from Mississippi that's called in, and Robert from Kansas. I want to come back after the break so that I don't have to rush either of those gentlemen, and also so that I can take your calls at 888-227-2546. So I have another question. Should you blow out an engine occasionally? I mean, like nail the throttle, and is that really necessary, or is it just an excuse to race? Well, for me, it's both. It's both. But that's a question I'd like for you to ponder through the break. And when I come back, I'd like to hear your opinion on whether or not it hurts your car, or if it's good for your car. And I'm talking about a rapid acceleration with wide open throttle until you reach 50, 60 miles per hour. Think about it. When I come back, your calls at 888-227-2546. Talking tunes? No, not the ones on your radio, the ones that allow you to reprogram your vehicle's factory computer without even popping the hood. The result is more power, more torque, and a better overall driving experience. We recently sat down with Jim McGinn, Vice President of Marketing for Power Tech. Jim touched on some of the additional products Diablo Sport has to offer.
In addition to the Diablo Sport lineup of tuners, Diablo Sport also offers Jammer cold air intake systems and Hooker Blackheart exhaust kits. These kits work in concert with the Predator 2, Intune i3, and Trinity 2 programmers to deliver increased fuel economy, mileage, and overall performance for your gas truck or SUV.
Folks, Diablo Sports performance products make the perfect holiday gift, and now is a perfect time to buy with their holidays savings. How cool is that? You get up to 20% off SRP on their extensive lineup of premium performance products. Learn more at DiabloSport.com. That's DiabloSport.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease, and she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We'll take a call from Kansas. Robert, thank you so much for your patience and holding and hanging in there. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Hey, I was changing oil on my 2012 Chevy Traverse here the last time, and I went to pull the oil cap off the engine, you know, where you add the oil.
Right.
And I swore that cap was glued onto there. I had a heck of a time trying to get it off of there. I finally got it off, but when I did, it almost looked like there was a little bit of rust, condensation in the cap where it slides in there.
Right.
And my wife drives it just 2 miles a day. But I didn't know if I needed to switch to synthetic oil would help ease that problem, or I've got other problems in the engine, or it's just the fact of it not getting warmed up.
Actually, Robert, to that end, earlier I gave some information about an oil change and oil change intervals and the difference between short drives and of course the longer trips. So there is nothing wrong with your vehicle. That is quite common and it's quite normal. And the only thing it means is, indeed, the automobile is driven such a short distance that the oil never reaches high enough temperature, which is 220 degrees, to boil out the moisture that's within the system. All cars do this, and when the vapors from the condensation turn into vapor, they're still not vaporized until you drive the vehicle at normal operating temperature for an extended period of time. So had your wife driven the car like 30 miles every day one way, that would not occur. But the bottom, and also to that end, you know, we had Jim Grundy on earlier, and then we had Ed Miles from Amelia Island, the classic Concours event with classic cars. I have a 911 Classic Porsche, and for those out there who have not a classic car, but a car that you crank up once a week and let it run, or maybe you're going to be on vacation or overseas or away, and you have your neighbor or a relative that's going to crank your car up once a week, do not do that. Never fire up an engine unless you intend to run that engine no less than 25 minutes. And Robert, you do not have a problem. It is a common issue. Every time your wife cranks up the vehicle, condensation forms within the crankcase, and because the oil filler cap is at the highest region of the engine, those vapors float to the top, and that steam comes to the top and accumulates on the cap. And to that end, on a normal, healthy automobile, which yours is normal, but on a healthy automobile that is driven maybe longer periods of time, but still short city drives, you will see, if you'll take, in my car experience, this very same thing, Robert, take the oil filler cap off and you will see inside of the black plastic oil filler cap, there's a film of what I would call, if you were custom painting a car and you had the color and it was white and you wanted to put a flame on it, but you want a foam or a dust. And then this dust is wet. Inside my black cap, there is red-looking dust, which is a form or a layer of oily, discolored inside my radiator, inside my oil filler cap. And I've actually talked with the technical tribologist at a major oil company about this. And the first thing he said, so you drive it 3-4 miles a day? I said, yeah, it's 3.9 miles from my office here at the studio to my home, and therein lies your problem. So you don't have a problem. I would say this: occasionally you should change the cap and put a new cap on it if there's any rust or any problem with the sealing of the cap. Otherwise, don't worry about it. It's okay. However,
just remember that there is oil and water. There's water in the oil, condensation, and you maybe on your wife's part should change the oil every 3,000 to 4,000 miles versus probably where you're going 5 or 6. That's what I would do.
Okay, yeah, I've been doing the every 3,000. I was wondering, is there any kind of a coating I could put on that cap so it would come off easier?
Not that I know of. And not, mine's plastic, and I can wipe it off, but you still have that, still have that coating there. Whatever you put on the cap, the coating is going to go right to the coating. So you're not going to protect the cap, and the caps are a dime a dozen. You can get a oil filler cap. You want to get the factory, the same thing as a factory. Anyway, glad you called. That's a common problem that most people, and I'm glad we talked about this because there's an issue there that's really not an issue, and I wouldn't want you to spend money on a car because you could take that money and I could help you spend it in a more worthy area, if you know what I mean. Hey, Robert, thank you so much for your call.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll take another call from Fred in Mississippi. Well, thanks for holding, Fred. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Bobby, are you talking to me?
I am talking to you.
I'm in Missouri. This is Fred from Missouri. They
Missouri.
got the
Okay.
state wrong, but yeah, I called you last week. Anyway, got the same 2005 Hyundai Tucson, and a couple of things. First, I wanted to say I'm trying to up your listening membership.
Good.
I think I may. You'll have to watch your national ratings. I may have increased it by 2 in Missouri over the last week.
You're so kind. I love you, man.
I'm trying. The one thing I'm having with this Hyundai Tucson, it's been for a while, and I don't think I've called you, and you're going to yell at me, but I understand. Don't yell at me too bad. I've had my check engine light on for a while, so that is already lit. But here's the problem. It appears that every time I add fuel to my gas tank, I have trouble starting my vehicle. I have to put my gas pedal all the way to the floor. I have to start it like an old flooded engine.
Wow.
I have to put the gas pedal to the floor, keep the revs up for, 1,000, 1,500, put it into gear. After about putting the engine under load, of course, I'm holding the brake on for about 10, 15, 20 seconds. It seems to equal out. The rest of the time, it starts just normal. Never have to touch the gas tank.
And you've experienced this.
Or the gas pedal.
And Fred, you've experienced this enough times and numerous times so that you know that this happens only when you fill the tank.
Yes, it's been for the last 6 or 8 months. I've tried going from a quarter tank to a half tank. I've tried going from an eighth to a half tank. I've tried going all different variations, and it only happened. I've even tried in my parking lot at work. I've opened the gas cap, left it open for 2-3 minutes, put the gas cap back on, and it started again with no problem. It only happens when I add fuel.
Okay, so that
I've
tells
been trying for the last couple of weeks to stump you.
This is easy. This is an easy fix. I don't know how inexpensive it's going to be. It depends on where the carbon canister and the vapor canister is located. We had an 04 Thunderbird in 3 weeks ago or a month ago that had a similar problem, not with running, but it had the check engine light, and it was a evaporative control system, and it was a canister that we had to replace. The canister was bolted to the bottom of the floor pan. Okay, no problem, right? Except it was above the differential. We had to drop the independent suspension differential out of the car onto the floor to gain access to this stupid located. I mean, we're going to put this in here because it's never going to go bad, right? So the bottom, the bottom line, the engineers. There's not a technician in the world that hasn't condemned an engineer, and the engineer just doesn't care because they're more interested in the piece and the dollars to make the piece than they are about working on the piece. At least my opinion. Now, let me say this, and I'll keep it short. Take it to a shop. let them check the codes, and it's going to be an evap code, and let them find the vapor solenoid that's either at the engine that is allowing raw fuel into the system, or a hose that's restricted or something. Don't worry about the symptom. Let them diagnose the problem by reading and scanning the architecture of the vehicle, the codes. And I want to say this, this in closing. Anyone can read a code. Any parts house can read a code. That is worth almost nothing. And I'll tell you why. If you and I are having coffee and we look across the street and there's a house on fire, we both know, and everybody knows there's a house on fire. But if we're first responders, we got to know where that fire started in there and find out and put it out where it starts. The same thing is true for reading codes in a car, in today's car. We in the industry have these expensive, not because we want them to be expensive, but because they are, diagnostic scan tools that don't just read codes. We get into the house that's on fire. We get into the electronic architecture of the vehicle, and therefore can operate the functions of the car in order to find out which particular module is not working or not talking to the other module or those sorts of things. Anyway, I got to go, but take it to a certified, master ASE certified technician somewhere there in Missouri, and get them to check the evap codes. And once they find that solenoid and those hoses that are defective or bad or whatever, that'll fix your problem. I got to go. Fred, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'll just tell you, I'm a window engineer, but I understand engineers to technicians. Yeah, and folks, I've got 155,000 on this engine. I appreciate your feedback.
Okay.
I always love listening to you.
Well, you're sure you're a gentleman engineer if I ever heard one. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
See there, folks, you never know who you're talking to. It's like going to a social event, and you get in there and you say, yeah, my foot was hurting me, and I went to a podiatrist, and he was the worst I've ever seen, and so and so. Well, by the way, what do you do? Well, I'm the partner of the podiatrist you just talked about. Hey, been there, done that. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you proudly in part today by Grundy Insurance, inventors of the agreed value insurance policy. It's the safest way to protect your collector car. You can learn more at Grundy.com. That's Grundy.com. Lawson from South Dakota. Hey, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Likis, and thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome, sir.
Hey, I've got a 2004 two-wheel drive F-150. It's got 142,000 miles on it. It's got the 5.4 in it.
Right.
And I'm having trouble with the number 2 cylinder. Well, when I drive it, sometimes it shimmies and shakes, and then if I accelerate, it kind of comes out of it. But it comes up on the diagnostic thing, number 2 cylinder, so I put a new ignition coil on it, and there's supposedly new plugs in it. Could there be something else?
It could be the driver in the PCM, the power control module, that drives that coil for that plug. But here's what you need to do. You need to, you said it had new plugs in it, but you didn't replace the plug. Buy one spark plug. Or if you have, if you have the, well, I would buy one spark plug, and I would pull that new coil out of that hole, and I would put a new spark plug in it and torque it, and then put the coil back in and clear the codes in the computer, and then see what happens. And if that doesn't fix it, then that leads me to believe that it is the driver in the electronic control module that fires that coil. That is not a common issue. Coils and plugs are common on F-150s, but that could well be the cause. And a PCM is not inexpensive, so you want to make sure that you're checking it all out. Another thing that could be is the wire connector at the coil, because, you know, of course, there's not a car on the market that is worse than an Audi with trying to get the connectors off, and so much so that Audi sells a kit and for the connector for the ignition coils. In fact, they sell a wiring harness, just like Mercedes sells the end of the wiring harness for the headlights because they've burned out so many wires that versus replacing the whole underhood wiring harness. Anyway, that's what I would recommend that you do is replace the coil, double check that connector on that coil itself, and then erase the codes, which you'll have to have a scan tool to do, and then drive it, and then let it reload, and either it'll be fixed or you'll have to go to the next step. If you do, call me back.
Okay.
Okay.
I sure appreciate that.
I sure appreciate it. You're welcome. Good luck.
Yep.
We go to Jeffy in New York. Jeffy wants to give another answer. Another answer. Okay. You're the last one up. You got 30 seconds.
Okay, Bob. Same thing. I look at a car like I do like exercise. Sometimes you got to get out there and do a little bit of resistance training. Get your fluids boiling.
Right on. Right. You're so right on the money. In fact, you need to call back next week or when it's convenient for you. And I'm always here every Saturday from 10 till noon. And we'll discuss the extensive use of a car and how to use a car for what it's supposed to be used for versus just easing around town, because that is really not good for an automobile. And so I'll close on that only because I'm out of time. I'm out of time. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. I love you guys. I'll see you next week, same time.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
To protect your engine, you have to change the oil. Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, pick up 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for $28.95 and get a free O'Reilly Auto Parts tumbler after mail-in rebate. Protect your engine from sludge and wear with O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limit supply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Talking tunes? No, not the ones on your radio, the ones that allow you to reprogram your vehicle's factory computer. Super Chips Performance Programmers increase performance for gas and diesel motors throughout the RPM band by installing an engineered performance calibration on your vehicle's computer. This can improve MPG, optimize shift patterns, and elevate driving experience. Check out the new Pulsar programmer at superchips.com. The Pulsar provides shift-on-the-fly power for your Hemi engine. That's superchips.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your